Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Howdy, y'all. Red O'Loughlin on Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Today, we're on topic number 6 of 6 on toxins in your health. And we've covered it from a lot of different directions. We've looked at what some of the toxins are, the individual chemicals, what they do, if they affect your endocrine system, your hormone disruptors, just all sorts of things. And today, we're going to wrap up the entire thing. We'll talk a little bit about what can we really do about some of these things. And it's interesting because as much as I prepare for these things, one of the preparations, let's just check one more thing. It seems like every time I'm checking one more thing, I wish I would have included that in there. Regardless, I have an extra piece of paper. We get toward the end. I would like to be able to include it. Well, we'll take a look at the time. I think it's important, and we'll see how it goes. But regardless, let's get the show on the road. And so get the first slide up here and set that up. As an introduction, this is a disclaimer. I am not a medical doctor. I have nothing to do with the pharmaceutical industry. I'm a researcher. I research the human body at the cellular level. I look for cellular health. What causes things to be healthy? What causes disease? And if you can figure out the cause of something, maybe you can stop it. Maybe you can slow it down. Or if it's a good thing, maybe you can speed it up. Maybe we can get more of it. And so those are the things I look for. Those are the things I write about. I speak about regularly. And this all came about because of my love of chemistry. 15 years of age, sophomore in high school, I had a chemistry course, and I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with it so much it became my major in college, chemistry major, math and physics minor. And all of a sudden, I got my degree, and a couple weeks later, I'm in boot camp because I got an invitation to Vietnam. Well, I didn't get the invitation right then, but it didn't take very long. But I became an aviator in the Navy. 31 years later, I retired from the Navy. I said I do to the Navy on a Sunday afternoon. I said I do to my wife the following Wednesday evening. And this year will be 55 years with my wife. But I still get involved in chemistry. My chemistry fascination happened when she had breast cancer. And I'm starting to research what can I do to some of these side effects. And I pulled my chemistry knowledge back up and I started working on it. And all of a sudden, wow, I forgot how much I love this. And so nowadays I'm sharing my joy with everyone. So that being the case, let's move on to the next slide and get this thing going. Okay, we talked about toxins and the definition that the medical industry gives you. It's a naturally occurring organic poison produced by metabolic activities. And in reality, yeah, that's a good place to start. But I think it's anything that's toxic to our bodies. We'll be talking later on today about salt, sugar, processed foods. There's a lot of things that are toxic to our bodies if we overdo it. One of the best references in the world is the Environmental Working Group, EWG.org. If it's not there, you're probably not going to find it. I find that to be probably the ultimate source of information if I want to just go check something out. You know, if I have a chemical that I need to know, I see on a label and I want to know, what does it do? How does this affect me? EWG.org gets you there. And we did some dumpster diving in EWG, and we found, okay, this is what it does, this is how it's affected, et cetera. So there's a lot of information there. But let's go ahead and begin our final wrap up. The three things that I want to cover today is toxin addiction. Well, that's kind of a strange way of thinking about things. If I have a toxin, why would I be addicted to it? Well, we'll cover that. And if I have toxins in my body, how do I get rid of them? And then the last thing I want to cover just before we wrap things up is maybe some of those foods that really taste good where we go out and have and spend a good amount of money on, I can fix at home and be just as good, if not even more healthier than what they give me in the restaurant. So, first one, toxin addiction. Well, when you take a look at food is all around us. It's primal. It's part of our lives. We can't live without it. But some foods taste better than others. And when we learn to be what is delicious, I mean, if I'm sitting there and I'm eating Brussels sprouts as a kid, a year and a half, 2 years of age, and I become associating that taste as being pleasant in my mouth, then I'm probably going to continue doing it. But if I do the same thing in ice cream or candy or chocolate, becomes that deliciousness that I learn to crave, then I'm going to be predisposed to, I'm going to pass on the Brussels sprouts. But if there's something over there that has sugar in it, I definitely want it. But the taste buds, we think about taste buds on our tongue. And in reality, if I take and measure the amount of, say, carbohydrate sugar that goes into my mouth as I'm eating, and I measure the insulin response, okay, fine. But if I take that same amount of sugar and I inject it into the bloodstream, where now I'm getting, instead of passing through my tongue, into my stomach, into the intestines and everything, why is there a difference? There really is truly a difference between just a little bit on the tongue and injecting that same quantity into my bloodstream. Well, it turns out that we have taste buds literally on our small intestines, particularly for sugar. And so that sugar gets down to the small intestines and it says, hey, I need some more insulin. And so it's just not what's on our tongue, it's other places. We get sensors in our nose, our throats, and they kind of enhance that. When I eat that potato chip, if I don't hear the crunch, if I don't taste that crunch, it's something there. And so all our other senses, our hearing, our what we feel in our tongue, all those things go into how delicious something is. I know when I eat ice cream that I get out somewhere else, it's so unctuously delicious, that just that velvety texture on the tongue. And that's all brought about by one particular toxin called carrageenan. It's a carcinogen, but they say it's basically safe because we don't put that much of it in there. But regardless, some things are just so tasteful that we can't stop eating them. So our taste preferences change over time. And that's kind of how we start this addiction. We start having these things, and then all of a sudden we find out I can't live without it. And we start eating to a point that I'm addicted to potato chips, ice cream, cookies. It doesn't matter. We get that sugar rush or salt or something else. But we know, okay, there's an extra 10 pounds, an extra 7 inches. I can't wear my clothes anymore. But at some point in time, I can't stop. We don't have control. That thing is taken over, as much as it may be any other kind of addiction: caffeine, tobacco, alcohol, sex, drugs, gambling, kleptomania, exercise. Some people have an addiction to exercise. We're talking about food, shopping, video games, addiction to working. Why? Because we get pleasure out of certain things, and our brain registers that pleasure. And if I have, this, let's say, beer, and it doesn't taste too bad, I have another one, taste, oh, okay, another one. And all of a sudden we start getting too much of a good thing. Our brain registers that too much of a good thing. And all of a sudden, over time, that pleasure becomes a habit, becomes an overuse, becomes not having control. So I think we have a lot of foods that we don't realize that we're addicted to, but being addicted to them, we are pulling these toxins into our body without even thinking about it. I would stop by the store the other day. I was looking for bread for something I was making. I wanted fresh French bread, and the store only had the packaged garlic bread. And as always, I mean, it's rare that I buy something I don't recognize all the time. And I pull it up and I look at it. There had to be 40 different ingredients in that garlic bread. I'm sitting there shaking my head. There can't be that many different things in this one particular item, but there was. But as I'm looking for what's in there, I'm eating beyond what I need. And if all of a sudden I'm just eating to eat, I bypassed my real focus, which is nutrition. I need nutrition. I don't need the salt. I don't need the fat. I don't need the sugar. Yeah, we need a little bit of it, but I don't need it in the levels that I may have been consuming. So as we're eating something that's sugary, our brain has that pleasure sensation. It releases a little bit of serotonin, it releases a little bit of dopamine, and I'm feeling pretty good. I need more of this. And as Lay's commercial used to talk, but you can't eat just one chip. And they spend a lot of time on the taste, the texture, the sound. Everything that goes into that chip is predicated on I want somebody to grab a second one, a third one, or a fourth one. If you look up in Google, what are the most common food addictions? Believe it or not, pizza is one of the top ones. Ironically, something I never acquired a taste for. Don't ask me why. I think I've had one or two pieces in my life. I just, for whatever reason, I'm not into pizza. Chocolate, different animal. Chips, okay, fine. I will admit. Cookies, yes. Ice cream, love it. My wife makes it with 4 ingredients, and it tastes great. I just love what she does with that. French fries. Now there's another one. I just never became enamored with French fries. I may have French fries once, maybe twice a year. It's not something I have. Cheeseburgers, my number one fault, no doubt about it. Non-diet soda, cheese, a lot of different. Everyone's different, and they're going to have a different predilection for what they think is their addiction. But then again, if I'm eating chips and there's 22 different ingredients in it, and half of them have some level of things that I shouldn't be eating because they may be a hormone disruptor, they may be challenge my endocrine system, ruin my immune system, increase my propensity for obesity, increase my propensity for heart disease. We really need to be very, very cautious about what we're eating more of than anything else. What what can we recognize that we start saying, okay, how do I know I have a food addiction? Well, the easiest way is you finish eating that bag of chips and you're still hungry for chips. Your cravings, you should be satisfied. You've had them, and all of a sudden you're still craving them. So, cravings, yeah, I get cravings like everyone else. It's ironic though. When I'm fasting, I have no cravings for anything. I'm driving down the street. I can smell Chinese food. I can smell burgers. I can smell whatever's wafting through the air, and I have absolutely no need for it. Yet when I'm not fasting and I smell that, yeah, that smells pretty good. It's interesting how we can adapt to the exact same stimuli and react differently. But when we're consistently eating more, if you're going back for seconds, that might be a clue. If you're feeling guilty after eating, well, I shouldn't have had that much. I shouldn't have had that second piece of pie. I shouldn't have had whatever it is. Or if you're making excuses to people, yeah, I know I shouldn't have had that, but it just tastes so good. Or I felt obligated because she brought it and nobody else was eating it. What if you're making these are all things that if you're using these as part of justification to yourself or someone else, you may have an addiction to that particular kind of food, that type of food. If you're finding yourself setting limits, okay, I'm only going to have 3 beers this week, uh, 3 beers tonight, 3 beers right after before dinner, whatever it is. If you're setting limits and you're finding you can't live within your limits, that failure mechanism is starting to now work against you. That might be a potential clue saying, hey, I might have a problem here. I may not necessarily have a problem, but I certainly have an addiction. If we're having a problem with eating, that may become into a disorder, binging and bulimia and half a dozen other things. But if I'm having a problem, it's maybe something that I can control. But when it gets to that point where I can't control it, now we have a problem. If you're hiding food, um, and no matter what effect it has on you, maybe, okay, like say you a couple, 3 inches in the waist, your weight's going up by 10, 20, 30 pounds. You're starting to see your health become a problem. Maybe your dosage on your medicines are doubling. Maybe you're having to increase your medicines on different ones. If you're having relationship problems because somebody says something and you're saying, I have it under control. These are all symptoms that are, it doesn't matter whether it's addiction to food, but these same kinds of things relate to other kinds of addictions. Um, So what are possible solutions? Well, if you don't know what the cause is, can you treat something? Well, if the cause is trauma, well, you may have to take a different fix for that one. If it's stress, there's so many different ways of dealing with stress, but most of us don't want to recognize that we have stress, or we don't have time to address stress. Sometimes it might be genetics, but that's generally 5% or less of the time. But epigenetics fix it. Lifestyle choices can fix a lot of genetic issues. Brain imbalances, again, that serotonin, the feel good, we get too much of it, and then all of a sudden becomes, I got to have more, I got to have more, I got to. Sometimes emotions, that trauma may be a major emotion, but maybe it might be somebody who's just kind of just grates on you, and then all of a sudden you spend a little bit more time. Okay, now I got to go, I got to feel good. I want to get my comfort zone. I want to just sit back and relax and pig out and eat chips, ice cream, what. Recognize what's causing what's going on. And so when we get these pleasures and we want to do something about it, these are things that, okay, that's probably a cause. Now we might be able to do something about it. And just because this person has stress and that person has emotional issues, one solution doesn't fix everything. And so this is where you need to recognize it and then start looking at what options out there that can be done. I talk to people all the time about Dr. Google and Dr. YouTube. There's a lot of good information out there. Just have to know which questions to ask. Sometimes the solutions have side effects, and anybody who's tried to give up sugar knows immediately. Yeah, there's some major side effects giving up sugar, no doubt about it. I mean, I remember back in the 70s, for whatever reason, I had a need at that time. I thought I did to give up sugar. Oh, headaches. I mean, I couldn't believe how something as simple as sugar could affect me physically. This is long before I got involved in nutrition and chemistry and everything else, but it was just something I had read. Says, well, just try it, you'll like it. No, I didn't like it at all, and it was many, many years after that before I finally understood why. But if you have side effects, it's, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. So you continue eating the sugar or whatever else is causing the problem. Sometimes we can change our mindset. Sometimes. Sometimes we need formal programs. Let's kind of go down that road for a short while. If I'm changing my mindset, and I'm not talking about eating disorders here because that's a different animal entirely. So if you have bulimia, uh, any kind of eating disorder, that we're not talking about that today. We've talked about that in the past. But mindset, we might be looking at something as simple as making a meal plan. We want to remove those addictive foods. Okay, if I'm addicted to ice cream and chips and whatever else, okay, maybe it's best I don't have those readily available. If I need them, I can go out and get them. But live with what you have. Try to remove those triggers. If salt and fat and sugar are the primary triggers for a lot of things, well, those are things that can be controlled. And it's part of recognizing what causes the problem. And so, again, sometimes we can set our goals. Sometimes diaries help a lot. Accountability goes a long, long way in regard to any kind of mindset change. Sometimes they'll tell you stop dieting because dieting is temporary. You really need a full lifestyle change. Sometimes it's how we view ourselves. Our self-esteem is a major portion of a lot of problems in our lives. And when we are stressed out about our self-esteem, we go to our comfort zone, we pig out and whatever. Labels, if we're not reading labels, you don't know what's going in your body, maybe that's part of the problem. We need to be more vigilant in that particular area. Some of the more formal solutions, and there's a lot of them, I've just picked this particular one, Food Addicts and Recovery Anonymous, any kind of 12-step program. You're accountable to whatever that is, just like Alcoholics Anonymous. We don't think about that so much with the foods we eat, but when we have some other kind of drug problem, alcohol problem, smoking cessation, we have things that people are held accountable. Well, when we're eating, we're not held accountable to anything. Yeah, you may Overeaters Anonymous because you are forced to do that. But accountability is something that when we start holding ourselves accountable to other people, that is a major step forward in being able to change a mindset. Sometimes there's formal programs out there for meal delivery. And if you're just looking at Nutrisystems or this thing here that delivers Health Basket or whatever it's called nowadays, there's just so many of them out there. That's great. But let's say you have diabetes, or let's say you have some other food issues. Well, put in meal delivery, diabetes, meal delivery, whatever your particular problem is, Crohn's disease, half a dozen others. And you'll find out that there are some programs that are set up specifically to deal with diabetes or Crohn's or inflammatory bowel disease or other issues. And so maybe Magic Kitchen is the one, if you need meal delivery to your house, that's concentrating on keeping you healthy, but also trying to balance out that medical disorder that you have, that problem. So, and there's a lot of other ones out there that are just conventional meal delivery programs. So that might be one if you're not into cooking and you have the ability to pay for those. That might be a very, very good way of trying to minimize that. Now, in reality, they may be using foods that have some level of toxins in it, but I don't think it's going to be the same level that you pull off the shelf. Mindset changes. That's a tough one, because when we have failures in our life, our subconscious mind remembers those failures. The prime directive of our subconscious mind is not to embarrass ourselves, not to hurt ourselves. And so when it sees something that, okay, I want to go on another diet. Well, you failed the last 15 times you've been on a diet. I'm not going to let you fail again. Your mindset, your subconscious mind is actually going to work against you. Sometimes we can change the words we use. Okay, I'm going to go on a diet. No, I want to eat more healthy. I want to lose some pounds. Well, then maybe a better way is I want to lose a couple inches. Maybe it's the words we use, our self-talk. There's so many people out there. Just Google mindset gurus, change masters. We think of Tony Robbins. But there's so many of them out there, and there's so many really, truly good videos on YouTube that just take 8, 10, 12, 15, 18 minutes, and they explain not only what works, but why it works in so many cases. I find that to be just a wealth of knowledge. Detox. That's the next topic. We really cleansing our blood. We get these things floating all around. Our liver extracts these things out. The liver's the biggest one, but we're also having so many things in there. The pollutants, the pesticides, these synthetic chemicals, the heavy metals. And there's just so many of them out there. We know there's thousands of them. I think there's about 5,000 different additives that companies put in our foods. And sometimes when we think about detox, well, we're going to go do a laxative, or we're going to do a vitamin or tea. Or sometimes it's just something, so I'm just going to cut back on alcohol. But, in reality, just drink more water, maybe go on a fast for a day, 24 hours. And you'll notice that your sleep becomes better. Sometimes it's just a matter of, I just want to reduce sugars. And if you're constantly eating 3, 4, 5, 6 meals a day, cut back to 1. Now you give your liver a chance to really and truly cleanse us. Our bodies are self-cleansing. We just got to give them time to do it. We can reduce the processed foods. There's a lot, there's more than a lot of chemicals in our processed food. That's just the way they are. Sometimes we can increase our antioxidants, berries, leafy green vegetables. Maybe part of the problem is salt. If you're not reading the labels, you don't know how much is in there. And if the salt is the last item on the list, not a problem. If the salt is in the top 5 on the list, problem. Same thing with fats. A lot of our fats are highly inflammatory. And if we don't do anything else, maybe we concentrate on that. Exercise, great way to detox. Sweat, probably one of the best. I love it. Sweat's one of my favorite. Maybe replacing some of your personal care products with natural ones. Take a look at your label on your natural care product. If there's more than 6, 8, 10 things in there, chances are you probably don't want that. If you can't read everything on there and know what it is, chances are that's not what you need. So I use coconut oil for just about anything and everything. So underarm deodorant, for lotion, I like it a lot. Okay. Liver options, that's your main primary deal. Remove alcohol. Get your balanced nutrition. You want to have everything that you need, at least 30 different nutrients on a daily basis. Add more fiber to your system. Increase the enzymes. These come from your proteins. Increase your exercise. Fasting, a major, major improvement. Let the liver do itself. Sometimes reducing caffeine. If you have a gluten or dairy sensitivity, might be an issue. A lot of good words about apple cider vinegar, lemon and water. Again, consult Dr. Google or Dr. YouTube. I really like Dr. Berg. Berg, particularly on YouTube. Great wealth of information there. If I'm in detox, how do I know I need to detox? Well, if I'm sluggish, brain fog, have bad breath, fatigued, gaining weight, constant cravings, headaches, a little bit more anxiety than normal. I'm having problems with my gut digesting stuff. Sometimes I eat something really fatty and I get that little feeling of nausea, diarrhea, even changes in appetite sometimes. These are all symptoms that maybe you need to step back and detox your body. Sometimes you may have joint pain. Sometimes that pain might migrate, from the shoulders, the knees to the ankles, dizziness, uh, autophagy. Real quickly, if you're not allowing your body sufficient time to allow the trash trucks and recyclers to come into the bloodstream and go to each cell and say, "What you got for me?" And they dump the trash out of the cell, you recycle what's in there. Autophagy is the term used for allowing the cells to clean themselves. If you're not allowing that much time, minimum 17 hours, up to about 72. That's when autophagy is just going crazy, getting rid of all the stuff in the body. So if you're eating 3, 4, 5 meals a day and you're not taking 17 hours out on a regular basis to fast, maybe part of the problem is your cells need to be detoxed because there's so much stuff in there that's not getting rid of on a regular basis. What do we know? If we're in detox, how do we know we're in detox? Well, some of the same things that caused us to recognize that we need detox are also part of the solution. Nausea, vomiting, anxiety, tremors, headaches. So in other words, you have a problem, your body's getting rid of it. It's going to exhibit something, not all the time. If you're just very minorly right on the cusp of having a need for detox, it might be something simple as confusion. It might be a little bit of insomnia or restlessness. Those are things that are there. Now, there's some nutrients that help more than others. Milk thistle, that is one that's out there that they tell you all the time. Take milk thistle in pill form in order to cleanse your liver. Green tea, B12 is a great one, but make sure you're taking the B12 under your tongue, not into your digestive tract, into your stomach. Berries, cruciferous vegetables, that's very important because of the sulfur in the cruciferous vegetables. There's a thing called TUDCA. That's the taurosidanic oxalic acid. It's a water-soluble bile, and it's something that you can buy online. Excellent, excellent, excellent for any kind of bile issue with the liver that it's not functioning properly. What are some of the restaurants that you can do that I want to have my blooming onion from Outback Restaurant? Well, I find copycat.com. And the fact is that I can take that recipe. It tells me exactly how to do it. Sometimes it even gives me a YouTube video. But if I go out and I use my own ingredients, I'm not getting the additives that the restaurant or the fast food place is doing. So if I make them at home and I buy organic, if I buy GMO free, if I buy hormone free, if I buy no antibiotics, a lot of things I can control my level of health with things that if I know exactly how to make it the same way that TGI Fridays makes it or your favorite seafood restaurant place. Those are things. There's tasteofhome.com, foodnetwork.com, Pinterest, Six Sister Stuff. Lots and lots and lots of them out there. Just say copycat restaurant food or copycat your favorite recipe. You'd be amazed at how much stuff is out there. And again, Dr. YouTube, Dr. Google. I love Chef Jean-Pierre. I think he's probably one of the best chefs out there for teaching me how to do stuff. And again, if I'm using my own materials, I can buy as organic as I want. So those things are part of that deal. So wrap up, and I'm going to wrap up with, we're just about on time. One of the things I found before I go through this last little slide is if I look at what's the increased risk of death by diet or lifestyle factors, the big one, 93%, is severe obesity, 80% heavy smoking. Again, toxins from smoking, 62% vegetable oil. We don't think about vegetable oil as being a major risk factor, but it's so highly inflammatory that it becomes a major part of the death cycle for people. Physical inactivity, about half, 48%. Heavy drinking, again, an addiction issue with food. They're saying 41%. Moderate smoking, 13%, 30% on smoking. Now you get down to the ones that we deal with here in this one. Sugar, they're saying 13% increase in risk of death by having a lifestyle issue where you concentrate so much on sugar. Of course, that leads to obesity and cardiovascular disease and other things. Air pollution, processed meats, around 10%. and then red meat and salt down 5% and lower. And so there's a lot of things out there that have an impact on your longevity, have an impact on your age-related health. And if you can start cutting some of those things back now, you're going to have a much friendlier, more enjoyable life down the road. So for me to wrap it up, read the labels, know what your maximum. If you pick up something on it, it has 32 items in there, put it back. If it has 6 items in there, okay, I can live with 6. Figure out what is your maximum number and what can you go to in order to make that work. Nutritional balance, key to life. You ought to be having at least 30 of the nutritional things your body needs every single day. Your vitamins, your minerals, your amino acids, your enzymes, all those nutrients that you have to have for a healthy life. Mitigate stress. If you're not doing 3 or 4 things a day to do something to kind of bring your stress levels down, that's a major area to work on. If you're finding that you're eating because you're stressed or because you just really need to sit down, watch the TV and go through a bag of chips, ice cream, whatever, cookies, maybe there's something wrong. Exercise routinely. Detox if you really need it. I think if you just fast a little bit, you allow your body to do everything itself. If you're finding your sleep is not as good as it should be, maybe it's something causing that, and maybe some toxins. I talked very briefly about autophagy. That's where the trash trucks and the recyclers come into your body, drive through your bloodstream, and pick up everything from the cells. Too much of a good thing, too much fasting, you're going to have a problem. But the other side of the coin is called mTOR, mammalian target of rapamycin. That's when your body needs food to grow. But if you're eating 4, 5, 6 meals a day and you're, quote, growing all the time, maybe you're growing around the middle and not growing in the muscle areas that you need. So it has to be a healthy balance between autophagy and mTOR. Remember, Dr. YouTube is your friend, and toxins can be a killer. And my final wrap up, my last slide here, as I can be reached at red@redolaughlin.com or red.olaughlin@gmail.com. Those are the 2 primary ones. But red, R-E-D, like the color, O'Laughlin, OLAUGHLIN. So it's red.olaughlin.com. I have a banner there with my telephone number and my email address. My preferred methods of contact are phone, just give me a call, or email. I have a couple books of the 5 that I have that are there. My number 1 best-selling book is The Joy of Ageless Health. That talks about the primary causes of disease, your stress, your toxins, your radiation, infection, inflammation, diet, and even expectations, and what you can do about each one. And the Longevity Secrets for Healthy Aging talks about the 2 primary causes of aging: your length of the erosion of the telomere at the end of your DNA every time the cell replicates, and the gradual degradation of human growth hormone. As we get older, we make less and less of it. And there's things we can do for both. They're both available on my website and also on Amazon. And I appreciate again, Dr. Jacqueline, for allowing me to be on the Talking Heads show on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And right now, I do not know what next week will bring us, but we're going to start another series. And as soon as I do, we'll start letting the world know. But again, thank you very much.